Good morning. Welcome to the Watchdog Wire Weekly Report for January 31st. It is 9:02 a.m. And I didn't do an update last week, but I had quite a few live streams. So I'm going to try to be succinct here and run through some of the key things that I covered since the last time I did an update. So I didn't do the last update I did was on January 19th, where I just did a general update. So let me throw up here what I want to talk about real quick today. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to put them in. And so the first thing I have listed is the Kevin Gaffin interview. I had a live stream about this interview, about the interview I did of him in prison. I don't really have anything to say about it more than it was well received. It had a tremendous turnout. Now, Snowmageddon was going on as well. And I continue to wish that I could get more contact from people on the other side. Angie Day, Brianna Weiskopf, David Schnivener, Ryan Applegate himself. I would love to interview these people. I have not really done anything more on this week, but I will endeavor to do so. I've just been very, very busy with other things. So that is my that is kind of an update on that. And I'm still hoping, if anybody knows people or former jurors, if there was somebody who was a juror during the Kevin Gaffin trial, you're allowed to talk, and I would like to talk to people to get different perspectives. I wasn't there when the trial took place, so I'm kind of not aware of kind of the actual real mood discussions and so forth. Okay, so the second thing I have here is the mega site. So I did a live stream that I think was good with Mr. Latour and Paul Riley. And I also put out something about the lack of people showing up at this event. I made a mistake. Tony Applegate was at the event, but I thought he wasn't. I had actually gotten info from several people that he wasn't. But you had, out of all these, David Taylor, and by the way, the congressman and the senator, Husted and Taylor, they're running for office. And this issue of data centers could well sink Vivek Ramaswamy and the Republicans, because it looks like the Republicans are out of touch with us. And you've got DeWine up there doing these deals secretly with Amazon to basically change rural Ohio into basically the place where data centers for the deep state gets put. But you didn't have Husted, you didn't have David Taylor, you didn't have State Senator Terry Swamp Johnson. You didn't have the commissioners other than Tony Applegate. So Gordon Ellis and Barry Woodruff. And by the way, they can be there. It's not some meeting violation for them to be there. What would be a meeting violation is they deliberate county business, not in an open meeting. And then, so you've got all that. And I do want to say that Adam Byrd showed up, and that is good. So the state rep showed up, and my understanding he stayed there 2.5 hours. I'm going to do something. He put out a notice about his going to do some legislation about NDAs, but it became very wishy-washy. I think that there needs to just be a clarity. I think they're already illegal, these NDAs. I just saw this plan here, and I want to play this, put the audio on and play this one little part here. Boy, you talk about this one council member, career limiting mood. What is his name? Zane Cordry. The way he responds to when are you going to live stream your meetings is an absolute embarrassment and a joke. Let's listen to just this little part.
See. Can you make a commitment to your public to live feed these meetings, please? Will you make an ordinance? You won't live feed these meetings? Sir, here's the deal. It may not be, well, good. You know what? You're one vote. That's what's good about democracy. You're one vote. If 5 other people say they'll do it, it don't matter what you say. Exactly. But it's a shame you want to accommodate your public like that. People are busy. Hey, you volunteered to do this.
So Zane Cordry, you can't hear that too good, but basically makes excuses for not live streaming their meeting and talks about he's busy. F him. I mean, literally F him. So in the prior meeting, he said some good things at the end, but he's an exemplar of don't trust anything from a political person. And by the way, he's bad. The people that didn't even bother to say anything are worse. So remember that. He's bad. The people who didn't say anything are worse. And I don't think anybody jumped in. I could be wrong, but I don't think anybody jumped in to say, no, we absolutely should do this. When at the last meeting, they were just talking about it. So just remember, political people are slime. Don't trust them, and only trust them transactionally, meaning that what they did for you right now. Okay, so let's go back to the Milford. Let's hit the Milford women's wrestling scandal. And this involves allegations. Effectively, the whole allegations boil down to, that I am aware of, boil down to one or more inappropriate pictures of one or more members of the wrestling team that I think probably would have been pictures, if it's true, would be pictures that were taken by somebody on the team, not by a coach. But you have these things with these coaches. So there's two coaches that were alleged to have these, or to share them, or to show them to other people. One was Tony Brothers, and one was Jason Babinek. And so Tony Brothers, though, is now back on the circuit and going to wrestling events, and he's greeted like a king. I mean, he is greeted like a king. So that's that's all I can say. He's back on the circuit, and he seems to be extremely well respected amongst the people who are wrestling. Okay. And then I'm going to hit something else here. Aaron Zupka, who is the athletic director, was the athletic director, and was terminated effectively, but has the right to a hearing, has requested that hearing, which is great. The more this stuff gets discussed, the more there's litigation, the more it stretches out, the more likely the truth will come out from it. So, of what actually did and didn't happen, and the veracity or not of the allegations. So Zupka is appealing his hearing. By the way, there's kind of three things. I said the pictures, but one of the things that relates to the school district and Zupka is that they never went to the authorities. They never really went to the authorities until after. They created an illusion that they had, but they really never went to the authorities until after Courtney Walls had gone to the authorities about this. Okay. Now, I want to hit this one. I'm going to talk about it for a second, but Judge Haddad. So Judge Haddad is the judge on the Babinek lawsuit relating to them, where I'm getting sued and 6 other people are getting sued by the Babineks related to these events. Well, if you go listen to the hearing audio I put out of last hearing, at one point in time, Haddad accuses me of sometimes pulling things from thin air, which is absolutely effing wrong, baloney, bullshit. Okay. I call total bullshit on that. Okay. But I went up after, I asked during the hearing for Haddad to explain what exactly was it that I had ever pulled from thin air. And he refused to do so on the record. That tells you, that's a tell. That's a tell. Okay. Then after the hearing, I went up to Haddad. And the thing that he had a hard on about with me is that I called him out for his complete incompetent, really corrupt handling of the sentencing of the Claremont County engineer, Patrick Monger. So go back to 2019, and Claremont County had an engineer, Patrick Monger, who had basically had improper compensation, used his office for supporting his campaign, shaking down vendors to do stuff for his campaign, felony level activity. And it was originally covered up in Claremont County. Somebody brought it to the sheriff and the prosecutor, covered up. Then they went to the auditor of state, who did an investigation. That's the only reason that Monger effectively got caught. But now he did a plea deal with a special prosecutor, David Forenshaw from Warren County, doing a solid for the team. I mean, the level of corruption of all these people is unbelievable to protect each other. But Haddad is upset because I called him out because he did basically everything wrong in the sentencing, everything wrong. So Haddad, the judge, never bothered to read the report of the auditor of state that was the nexus for the charges. He never read the report. And had he read the report, he'd realized the plea deal they were putting before him was bullshit. Okay? Was bullshit. But listen to this. Listen, think about how you might be treated in court. And then think about this, what I'm going to put on my play here in a second. I'm just going to play the very beginning of it. Listen to how Victor Haddad talks about Pat Monger I called it at the time a slobbering love affair, an embarrassing slobbering love affair. The sentencing judge talks about how what a buddy he is, how he took his kids to dinner. He talks about the lawyer for Monger and how he takes Haddad's kids to dinner. And then he went, so, hey, do any of you guys have a problem with me casting a decision on this? Of course they don't have a problem. You're buddies with them. It's like insane. Okay, but listen to this at the beginning. This is the thing that he's upset with me about, of calling him out on this nonsense effectively. All right, let's go here. There we go. Oh, okay. It's got to play. Hold on.
Before we get started, I just want to put on the record, as I told Mr. Hardman, and I told Mr. Croswell, Mr. Monger, I've known you a long time. I think a lot of you and your family. I want to put that on the record.
He loves them.
It's not going to influence what happens here, but I want to make sure, Mr. Monger, that you're comfortable with this court hearing your case.
I am, Your Honor.
All right, and Mr. Hardman.
So that's the very beginning. You can go watch that. I'll put a link in the notes for this. Listen to the whole thing. He goes on about how the respect, how Monger doesn't need any rehabilitation, how he's a man of great honor and character. And it's like crazy. I mean, in a world where when I was a kid, when the saying would have been avoid the appearance of impropriety, and you've got this slobbering love affair. So what happened in the sentencing was Haddad routed restitution of $3,000 to some third-party charity, which is directly against the Ohio Revised Code. Okay, he had not read the sentencing, the report from the investigatory report from the auditor when he did the sentencing, and he just accepted a misdemeanor plea deal with really a complete slap on the wrist for what should have been felony activity. And it was embarrassing to the people of Claremont County. It was embarrassing to the bench. Haddad revised the sentencing entry, I believe, 3 times because he effed it up so bad in there. But it's indicative and emblematic of the way a lot of times too much the court system in Claremont County and other counties treat insiders versus everyday Joes versus insiders. You know, everyday Joes don't have access where they hang out with the judge and take his kids to lunch and do this kind of stuff. And why would you think, if you're Haddad, that it was appropriate for you to be handling this case when the person is a co-elected official and a friend? I mean, it is absolutely obscene. So what Haddad has hard on with me is that he claims that I said that he had read the auditor report. This is like shot or stab. Haddad claims that I said he had read the auditor report and then proceeded with the misdemeanor when it should have been a felony. He maintains that he never actually read the report. So that's his defense. His defense is I'm incompetent and I didn't read the report. Okay, so and that I was wrong that I claimed that he had read the report when in fact he had never read the report. Well, by the way, I can't actually find, I might have claimed that. I'm not saying I didn't, but I can't actually find where I claimed that he read the report. I think I claimed that it was ridiculous that he gave him a slap on the wrist misdemeanor plea deal when it was felony activity, and he effed up on routing the restitution to a charity that Victor Haddad liked and probably wanted to curry favor with. I mean, it is perverse and it is wrong, but apparently this happened in 2019 and we're sitting here in 2026 and apparently Haddad still got a hard on for me having exposed his own incompetence. So he should have been apologizing to me. Even in the hearing that we had on January 20th in this Babinek thing, why wasn't Haddad apologizing to me for the errors that he made? Instead, he's claiming I pull things from thin air. Now, remember, this is also in a hearing where one of the issues Haddad didn't want to deal with is that the Babinek's attorney had, I think, 6 to 10, probably, I think 8 direct and then like a couple of misquoted, but like cases in filings that didn't even exist. They're called hallucinated cases, fake court cases in his filings, pulled from thin air. That's not an issue for Haddad. That's cool. That's cool. But Chris Hicks called you out for effing up totally in the Monger thing and looking very corrupt in doing so. You know, and that is what I'm going to say about that at this point. It's just watching these elected officials. They live in such a, especially the judges, they live in such a echo chamber of their their own greatness that they just have no clue. All right. I also reported this week in Union Township, Claremont County, high on life, won't take a drug test, won't answer questions about what drugs, prescription or otherwise, he takes. Michael Logue going absolutely bizarro world on John Becker. So Union Township already has 2 pot shops, and they were both, the one was put in place with absolutely no public oversight at all. The second one, the only reason it got revealed to the public that it was coming is because they fucked up the zoning paperwork and ended up having to have a hearing on it. That's how the people, even me, I'm on the Republican Central Committee at Union Township. That's how I found out about it. The Joe Dills, John Becker, and Michael Logue are all on the Republican Central Committee, and they kept it secret from the Central Committee that they were going on the pot world thing. And so now they are trying to get more pot shops. I don't know if Michael Logue thinks this is a way to get campaign contributions in the future, but it's bizarre. But what happened in the hearing, not in the hearing, in this meeting, it was, I believe, a January, whatever date it was, it's on probably on here, the January trustee meeting, maybe January 13th, is that Michael Logue, when Becker is against pot shops, it's a reasonable position to have. We already have 2 of them. We're already the pot capital of Claremont County. How much more do we need? Michael Logue switches the discussion in that John Becker is evil because he's for having electric vehicle chargers. It is the most bizarre, mentally ill thing. And I think there is something mentally wrong with Michael Logue. There is something, you've seen videos of me with the guy. There is something mentally wrong with him. I don't know if it's some PTSD thing or something, but he should come clean about it. So that's a bizarro world. I'll play just the very beginning of this and see if it's a fun part. I can't remember what I have at the very beginning of these things.
What are we going to do? Change our logo to, instead of a tree, make it a marijuana plant?
I'm absolutely going to get that worked on.
The Becker Electric Vehicle Initiative, that's something I stood against. Because the nearly 1 million...
So remember this, Michael Logue is against AutoZones. He's against electric vehicle chargers, and we're going to hear more about it. But he's for pot shops, okay? This is Michael Logue. Nutty. So he is nutty. And there's a point in time during the meeting, it's funny, where Michael Logue is going into this like mentally ill rant about EVs. And Joe Dills actually has to go over to him, like, and he says, like, it's very quiet, you have to listen. Joe Dills says, you do know we're talking about the marijuana shops. It's like just, Michael Logue can't defend his goofy positions. Therefore, he always tries to demonize and deflect. That's the only thing he's got, and everything has to be on cue cards. The way to get Michael Logue is he can't answer questions on the spur of the moment. He can't talk off the cuff. He has to write everything out on cue cards because he doesn't. There's something wrong up here, and whatever it is, I'm going to stand by it. He should come clean about it. There is something wrong with him, and more people that are around him that were originally supported him know that there's something wrong, and he should talk about it. He is an elected leader. He acts very odd. He's glazed. He goes in and out of phase, and and he should just talk about it. If that's just his normal way he is, okay. But I think a lot of people at this point think there's something involved, be it prescription or otherwise, it's having an impact on him, and he should come clean with the people because it's clearly affecting, whatever it is affecting his ability to govern. And we deserve to know what is, and that's my opinion, if I'm allowed to have an opinion in the United States at this point. All right. So the next thing, the Claremont GOP, I've put some stuff out about the Claremont GOP endorsement process and what happened. I did a live stream, and Dylan Blevins, thank Dylan Blevins for helping set this up. But I'm going to unmute this just for a second. I'm like 500 votes from knocking her off.
I heard figures today, talking to committee people who have.
So the thing about it is it just works sensational. I got to get, hey, if you think you could do what Dylan did and be a field reporter, so when I can't be someplace that you could do what he did, he basically had a tablet and earbuds and could bring people up. I can move this up, and different people will be getting interviewed at different times. Okay. And he did a great job. And then, and it worked really well. And I did good. I think I did good at covering the gaps while he was getting another person to be interviewed. So if there's an event like this and you think you could become a Watchdog field reporter and help me do this, I could even sometimes I think lend. I want to get some. I want to test it out to try it. I mean, I thank Dylan Blevins for helping me out and doing this, and I think it just is. It's a great approach, and it came off very well. It was like a professional. It was like a professional, thing where I was at the headquarters, and Dylan was the field reporter, and he did a great job, and it's really opened my eyes as to something I can do more of. Okay, all right. So Lemanuel Scales, I got to hit again. The emblem of the decline of character in America. You got a guy that plays plays an act. Becomes basically a caricature for people, the cool dude, and is a deadbeat dad. Owes over right now, I think, and he could always come clean about this. I think he's now over $8,000 that he owes between two kids, with two different baby mamas. Where he insults and degrades them repeatedly, that they should come to him and beg for money when he's not paying, and that they should it's good enough for him to spend time with his kids. It's not, which by the way, I'm not sure how this works out exactly, but they should come and beg him for money for certain things. And it's just disgusting. It is disgusting. But back in 2020, he had a big post because it served his interest that basically talk about how against deadbeat dads he was. Well, look in the mirror, dude. You are the deadbeat dad. Okay. Now, one of the things, by the way, people brought up immediately, and I went and found it and grabbed, I'll put up here, is that the guy who's not paying for his child support for his kids and is making fun of the mothers on the radio, okay, and making fun of that he doesn't pay his child support. Golden Sith tattoo is his family, okay? So he just, I guess, shelled out for this new tattoo of whatever that is. Is it Jesus or like some sort of goofball Jesus? Or I don't know what that tattoo is, but he has this goofball tattoo. He's advertising his family. Apparently, he's got the cash flow for getting tattoos, but he doesn't have the cash flow for paying for his kids. The guy's disgusting. Okay. And then people get on me about it. He is a public figure. He holds himself up to be an exemplar of caring for people and for helping people in these campaigns. And he basically abuses his kids by not paying his child support for them. And he won't account for where money goes when he does these fundraisers, and he's put on a pedestal. It's an example. I'm telling you what, black, white, Asian, brown, male, female, there are 100 times better role models in our community in Claremont County than this guy. And I say that also saying he's a very talented guy, and I wish him the best. And I would love to have that redemptive story, how he changed his ways. He started working nights. He did whatever so that he can pay for his kids. Be a man. You're being a boy. He's like a child. He's basically like a child. And I don't get, if you watch him and see him do these streams that he deletes, go and get a, screen record him if you see this, because he does them and deletes. I have people all the time telling me about different screen record things he said on his live streams that he deletes. That's crazy. I got reports of his one last night of that he was attacking some of his own followers. I get told that he blocks anybody that questions, why don't you account for where the money went in your fundraisers? And so, but he does these streams and deletes them. If he starts saying crazy shit, screen record him, because he's going to delete them. And so that you have a record of this. He wants to not have a record of the crazy shit he says, I think. He did that with me. Okay. All right. So now we're down to Householder Revisited. Larry Householder, I think I covered this last time. I must have left it on there by accident, but I went down to where Larry Householder, I'm going to have more stuff about the Florida connections of Larry Householder and the crooked people in the Larry Householder bribe scheme. They were those people. There's Juan Cespedes was opening a bar in West Palm Beach, I think. He was one of the people that pled guilty down here. Larry Householder had his place down here. Neil Clark, which I've already done a piece on Neil Clark that I've not released yet, who committed suicide. There's $61 million in bribe money. Larry Householder's in jail, and almost nobody else is. Everybody else got you can be crooked and we'll not do anything to you, because the people think they got some sort of justice on Larry Householder. but all the lieutenants, the layer that was around layer householder is largely never been sentenced, that did plea deals to take a conviction. You had the one guy commit suicide, and then all the lieutenants that ran the operation under, not a single one of them paid any price. And that's why we have the most corrupt state politically in the United States, which is a bitter pill to swallow, but it is absolutely the truth. Okay. All right. So let's look at the last thing I want to put up here, and then I'll look at the comments and address any comments, is the Claremont Sun. Let me flip this up here. I like to harp on the Claremont Sun. I could do any of the Champion Media Group papers in our region across Brown, Adams, and Claremont County. They all suck. But the Claremont Sun is my local paper, or piece of shit. Okay, so I wanted to highlight, this is their edition for this Thursday, came out on Thursday, January 29th. You have a story about the storm. Okay, I get it. We had the Snowmageddon. We have this repackaged updates from the construct engineer, which is not really an original piece of content. You have then everything else is basically submitted content. You get the police, the prosecutor, the government makes its own news. Is that the way it's supposed to work? Is that the way the First Amendment's supposed to work? I thought the press was supposed to be a check and balance on government. So you've got, Batavia Highway Patrol, stories submitted by the prosecutor's office. Even a halfway respectable news operation would take those. If you're strapped for resources, you would at least take that story. Like, I'm going to go back here. You could use that as a basis, but go ask some questions. Go ask some questions to people. Go make Mark Ticalvi answer some questions on the story. Don't just reprint the story the government tells you to reprint. So there's one other thing on here I wanted to highlight, because it's basically there's nothing meaningful in here. So you have this guy Plikovic. He gets this guy there's no real editorial content. You get this guy that they let him write 1 to 3 articles every week on the VA, every week on the VA. Okay. And then these other placed articles that are usually from some sort of syndicated thing or something they picked up that has nothing to do with our local community. And it's pathetic. It is absolutely pathetic. I don't know who buys this. By the way, the sports section, that's the only redeeming part of it. I would love to talk to this guy. I've never really sought him out, but Jake Dowling that does this part, it's the only redeeming part of this paper, is he does an excellent job at sports coverage. You take him out of there. They already lost, I think, their biggest advertiser, Jungle Gyms, their biggest commercial advertiser. They only survived because of government advertising, which I'll show you here. All these papers rely on this government advertising. By the way, this is the advertising if you live in Brown County, where your idiot government says, well, we noticed it in the paper in Brown County that we were going to screw you. We announced that. Don't you read it? This is the thing they're expecting you to read. They're expecting you to come in here and read these ads. And that's how you know about meetings, events, zoning changes, and stuff like that. Okay. It's absolutely idiotic. It's absolutely pathetic. It's absolutely terrible. It's absolutely wrong. And it's absolutely payola. It's the way that these newspapers become beholden to the government, because they need this. They need this revenue from these ads, and these governments could get mad at them and say, for example, use the Enquirer for a couple of months for publishing these ads and drive this paper out of business. I just don't know how the paper stays in business. I mean, who advertises it really? Okay. They lost Jungle Gyms in the mix, and I say good on Jungle Gyms. Okay. For that. All right. So that is it. There's a bunch of stuff I'll be covering next week. I'm going to look at the comments real quick here to see what we got here. Let's see. Okay, this is Bill Thomas, Change Claremont. It is very interesting where judges in Claremont recuse very selectively, and it's very bizarre, and there's usually no reason why they should be recusing. I am not asking for Victor Haddad to recuse from the case, the Babinet case. I am asking him to act in a respectable, credible way. A lot of Bill Thomas comments here about Logue. So Bill Thomas reactivated his Change Claremont page. So I encourage you to go take a look at it. And, he's under the gun. They've been trying to target him and get him out of having his First Amendment protected commentary and speech, and that's wrong. And so he has And by the way, I do not agree with this. Only liberals. So one of the things Bill does that I don't agree with is paints everything as liberals versus conservatives. And that's not correct. It's not, what it is dumb people. Dumb people celebrate people. And there's no shortage of dumb people, sheep, lemmings, that celebrate things. It's not like liberals. It's not a liberal conservative thing. Okay. It's a, yeah. So this labeling it liberal conservative, I think, is wrong. Okay. It's not. And it's pathetic when we always try to make things about liberal conservative. It's about, those things that are, but most it's about corrupt. And I'll tell you, there's corrupt people on both sides and there's dumb people on both sides. And the people who claim to be our leaders, who have very often very little or nothing in common with us, like to keep us making it these us versus them thing. Okay. And Bill, I'm sorry, liberals, the mental insanity is on both sides. Okay. This is what loses credibility when it just becomes that it's liberal people are insane and conservative people aren't. I'm telling you, Jeff Corcoran, and other people in the Claremont GOP have the attributes of dishonesty, lack of integrity, lack of ethics, and they maybe you want to say that they're liberals, and that's in the lack of integrity, lack of ethics, that makes them liberals. But I don't agree with that. I just think that it's just trying to force fit it into a political argument, and it's not always productive to force fit things in a political argument. I think that everybody, liberal, conservative, whether you like Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, should all be the same in terms of people should pay their child support. That's not a liberal or conservative issue. And that getting tattoos when you are $8,000 behind on child support is disgusting and pathetic. Okay. All right. I don't know what this means. I don't know who Brian Gaffin is. You can go watch on my all the things I'm highlighting here is a comment is, how can I watch the story on Brian Gaffin? I think my story is on Kevin Gaffin. And all the things I highlight here are on the Watchdog Wire, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on X. And most everything that I do gets its attention on Facebook, but I actually encourage people. YouTube is an easier way to watch a lot of these video things because it's you can watch it on a TV easier. So don't forget that I put things on that I put things on YouTube. If I started putting them on YouTube, it was easier for me to watch them because I could watch them on the TV easier, but they're there and they get views, and I get very little views on X, but I put things on X also. Okay. And I don't know if somebody's asking about what happened in the Milford wrestling scandal. I have about 100 stories online about the Milford wrestling scandal. One thing I've noticed on Facebook is they seem to right now it changes all the time, and you can't search on the phone app, at least on Android, you can't search, but on the desktop on a browser, you can search. So you can always come to the Watchdog Wire and search on like Milford Wrestling, and you're going to find all the stories. The same on YouTube. YouTube, you can go search and you can find stories. Some of them I make playlists, like there's a playlist of all the Gaffin case hearings and stuff like that as well. Okay. And all right, so that is it. That's what I'm going to talk about from the comments. I think I hit most everything, and appreciate you guys tuning in. How to do on time? 9:36 is one of the shorter ones for me. I try to have these. I started out wanting these things to be about 30 minutes, and then I go like an hour usually. So, but I encourage you. I'll put some of the links that I covered in the post for this live stream. Thank you for tuning in. Now tomorrow at 7 p.m., I'm going to have a live stream where I know John Becker is going to be there. And hopefully at some point, Greg Gentile will speak up, show up, talk up. He's been invited to have a discussion with each of the auditor candidates in Claremont County. And I've even pre-given them the questions. You can go look at the post I made about it. And I have pre-given these guys the questions that I'm going to ask. And I said, I'm going to stay on the script and just let you guys talk. And Becker has never run away from talking to me or doing an interview. Gentile runs away runs away all the time, but he's got to man up. Gentile at some point is going to have to man up or I don't know where he ends up, right? Because he's got to have the balls. You can't enter the circus of politics and not have the balls to talk, and think that now you got a big eye-opening, Greg Gentile, that your mama, Linda Fraley, ain't going to put you over the line alone. You're going to have to fucking do the work, okay? You're not just going to get endorsed and waltz into office and be the crony for Linda. You're going to have to do the work. You're going to have a platform. You're going to have to be able to talk. And so that is, the key point to this. And I'm looking here if I can find it. I can't find it, but I actually put on the post the question. So oh yeah, here it is. So the questions are for each of them is, who are you and why are you running and what are your qualifications? Is that a fair question? Yep. Greg, Becker won't have any problem with this. Greg, that's a fair question, right? What would you change about the office versus keep the same? That's a fair question, right? How do you react to community concerns over property tax rates? And where do you stand on efforts to reform property tax? Fair question. Okay. Fair question for any auditor race, by the way. Do you think there are things that could allow reduction in property tax? If so, what? That's number 4. 5, the auditor's office has many functions beyond property tax. What functions stand out to you as possibly having room for improvement? Fair question. And then closing comment. Okay. So that is the questions that I've had for them. Greg Becker, I don't think Becker, I would have even had to give him a list of questions. He would have been okay with just open questions because Becker's pretty comfortable in his own skin. John and I disagree on a lot of things. Okay. But he's relatively comfortable in his own skin. And Greg Gentile, you got to start manning up. You got to start showing that you can actually even answer questions. And so that's why, in particular, I want to make sure it's very clear. It's not going to be open-ended, very specific list of questions. And Greg Gentile, if he doesn't have the balls to do it, he doesn't have the balls to do it. But he has not responded so far. And it's been like, I didn't put this out till it's been like more than a day since I asked them if they would do it. And Greg Gentile has not responded. He doesn't think he needs to, and it's going to be at his own peril. And he should learn. He should have learned what happened to him in the endorsement process where his mama, Linda, couldn't push him over the line alone. He's got to man up, got to toughen up. Okay. Toughen up or quit. Yeah. That's the toughen up or move type of thing. So, any event, thank you guys for tuning in. Have a great rest of the weekend. Sunday night, 7:00, Claremont County auditor discussion. I know at least John Becker's going to be there, and hopefully Greg Gentile will. I'll treat Greg Gentile very fair. He just got to step up and man up and show that he can answer some questions and not just keep running away. Otherwise, it's just going to be worse and worse for Mr. Gentile. Thank you guys. Have a great weekend. Bye.